Now, the Eagles still have a great record, but they look far, and I mean far from a great team. Frankly, last night they didn't even look anywhere near like a good team. So a lot of pieces to pick up as they move through this week, but we're not there yet. We're in review mode, and we'll certainly talk to you about it and with you about it at 215-592-9494. An absolute disaster last night, Richie Rich.
Joe,
hey, bud.
Newborn babies had no tears.
Well, then they wouldn't cry last night, but I guess a lot of Eagles fans probably didn't. This is more of an anger thing than a cry thing. This is one of the Eagles' worst losses in a long time, and it's the type of loss that really, really, really makes me question how good the Birds are. I know teams hit bumps in the road during a season. I know we saw it near the end of 2017, obviously after Carson got injured. We saw it, and, it can happen. Look, the Eagles lost 2 in a row last year and got to the Super Bowl. Now, granted, those 2 games without Jalen Hurts, but, teams, it's almost an impossibility to not hit a bump in the road during the season. The problem is this doesn't feel like a bump in the road, doesn't feel like a speed bump. It feels like they just hit a brick wall. Now, hopefully they prove that feeling wrong. But I'm telling you, as I wake up this morning, that's what it feels like. That's, to me, what it felt like watching the game last night. I mean, they got taken apart 2 weeks in a row by excellent football teams, San Francisco and Dallas. It's one thing to happen once. It is truly alarming when it happens back-to-back weeks. And look, we want to hear from everyone at 215-592-9494 and get your reaction to what you saw, what we all saw. I mean, I had a friend text me. It was probably third quarter last night. And his question was simple. He said, and he's not an Eagles fan. National guy perspective. He just said, hey, what do you think the biggest problem with the Eagles is? What's the biggest issue? And my immediate answer was defense. Just all-encompassing. I wasn't talking about parts of the defense, just defense. And he said, well, what about the offense? Well, yeah, that's a problem too. I mean, here's the deal. When you think about – I know. Like when you think about –
And what about the coach?
I know, the coaching, exactly. I mean, to me, defense, offense, and coaching all come into focus here. Special teams, frankly, is the only thing that doesn't. Defense was a disaster. We know it. We saw it. Has been bad for kind of a while now. The offense scored only 6 points. Now, I will say this one thing, the one thing I'll say that is sort of back in the offense a little bit is they just handed the ball over to them, which is, of course, their fault, meaning the Eagles' fault. But, it's not like they didn't move the ball at all. This wasn't like watching the Jets 2 weeks ago, okay? At least the Eagles did move the ball 3 times, obviously, in Dallas's territory, including a couple times pretty deep. They turned the ball over, and so what was 6 points by the offense, it could have been 16, 14, 21. It could have been. It wasn't, could have been. Look, Hurts doesn't look right. He just doesn't look right. Again, I don't think he's looking quite as bad as it looked last night when you consider they could have put more points on the board if they held on to the football down the field. But obviously he doesn't look right, and we've been detailing that for weeks now, and there are issues that are clearly coming home to roost. They don't run the ball enough. They don't run the ball well enough. The offensive line, I find it hard to believe, is the best unit in football anymore. Guys, I'm not going to tell you I watch all 32 teams to start, let me see this team's offensive line. I don't do that. I don't care to do that. I don't give a damn. What I know is I can evaluate what I see with my squad and say, let me just, with a general sense, do I think they are a top 5? Do I think they are a top unit? And there's no way, with the way this team can't run the ball effectively anymore, there's no way that this is the best offensive line in football. Defensively, I mean, look, we know the deal. The linebackers are brutal. The safeties are not very good. And by the way, they haven't even been that injured this year. The Avonte Maddox injury has obviously been a factor. Blankenship got hurt last night. It's not like, though, they've been decimated by injury. They haven't. I mean, the Kobe Dean, I don't know if he'd be making any difference with the way he was playing. Safety's not good. The corners behind Avonte Maddox obviously have struggled. Roby's probably done the best of the third and fourth guys. But, I mean, that whole lot it's been a tough go. Slay and Bradbury are not giving them what they need, although Slay made some plays last night. But Bradbury has struggled. Slay has regressed. That is obvious. They are not forcing enough pressure up front. The front frickin' four is not, I know Reddick got a couple sacks last night, but come on. They are not getting the quarterbacks well enough. By the way, Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis, I feel like I haven't seen those guys make a play in like a month. And I'm not counting Jalen Carter picking up a football and running 20 yards for a touchdown. That was a play made by Fletcher Cox. Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis are not doing their jobs effectively enough, and frankly haven't for a good month. For Jordan Davis, it might be as much as 2 months. The coaching, as John pointed out, has not been good lately, whether it's the coordinators or the head coach or the combination. But I'm just going to give you 2 examples, and I'm turning it over to John. And this is such not really where they lost the game, but contributing factors that had to do with coaching, not really scheme, but coaching decisions, in-game decision-making that I found beyond ridiculous. The end of the first half was a disgrace, total disgrace. John's been pointing it out this year. In a lot of instances, I don't agree with John. What John's going to say about it, I'm sure, is dead on because I saw it, we saw it. There's no way when you need points in a game like that on the road and you're already down, you just turtle up at the end of the first half. That was bad.
That's what we do at the end of every first half. Why would it be different?
Yeah,
why would we try to actually score points in that situation?
Man. Horrible decision. And the other one I'll say that is such a, like the game was basically already over, but when you're down 17 points with 7.5 minutes to go in the football game, it is not the time, okay, to do the tush push. I mean, that's just dumb. I don't know if that's Brian Johnson or Sirianni. Guys, that's not where they lost the game. But I'm just pointing out the kind of thing. I mean, they're like, oh, we're really good at it. Yeah, they are. But the clock's tick, 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 tick. And now they happen to have it all sides and the whole deal, blah, blah, blah. But, like, why would you tush push when there's 7.5 minutes to go and you're down 17 and you know it's going to probably take 20 to 25 seconds before you run the next freaking play anyway? Come on. And schematically, they have been out of whack. Look, want to hear from everyone at 215-592-9494. I mean, this is bad. John, talk to me.
Schematically out of whack. That's such a nice way to put it. We didn't play our best game. We weren't even close. Like, I expected that was the what we were building to all season long, and we are not peaking at the right time, no. Joe. There's no doubt.
And they're not getting 1% better. They're getting like 20% worse.
We are getting significantly worse, and I think it's fair to question our offensive approach. Have teams caught up? Can they flat out stop us when they choose? You know, the good ones. I would say the last 2 weeks suggest, that teams have caught up. Yeah, teams do have a good beat on us. Look, at least I know we have good players on that offensive side of the ball. On the defensive side, I'm not sure about that. On the offensive side of the ball, teams, we just saw the last couple weeks, teams know when they need to get you, they send extra players. When they need to get you, they blitz. Yet you don't have consistent answers for the blitz within this offense. We've asked about it repeatedly, and we've been told by Nick Sirianni, we have hot routes and hot reads and sight adjustments in our offense, but then we don't see that on game day. I don't understand why that's not included when it really matters, and it's just not good enough. What our offense has become is, hey, Jalen, go run around so they can't hold coverage any longer, and that's just not going to cut it anymore, Joe, against these good teams as this season progresses. Teams are catching up. We've been outplayed by 2 good teams 2 weeks in a row. We can be a good team, but we're not right now. And we can't lose the turnover battle against a good team and expect to win the game. That's just not realistic. And we had sort of gotten accustomed to that this season. Yeah. At this stage, if you don't play well, because these other teams are good now, and these games do matter, 14 weeks under your belt, a team's going to beat you if you don't put your A game out there. And every team's going to put their A game out there against our team. So these players and coaches, they really need a reality check because it is far too sloppy, both sides of the football, too loosey-goosey with the protection plan offensively, and bad tackling again defensively. The Keystone Cops looking defensive scheme at times. How about on the opening drive when you got Bradley Roby double covering? It was Roby and Moreau double covering CeeDee Lamb on the play that he scored a touchdown. They just dropped off. They just fell off. Dak bought a little time. They just, why cover any longer? And then, boop, easy pass. Like, that really was Keystone Cops-esque. But it was awful. Remember, though, we still have a shot at doing things
That's true.
this season. I don't want that to get out of focus. I know it sounds hollow right now, but if we just win out, beat the teams on our schedule, and we know that they're beatable, you can still win the NFC East. We might not be able to get the 1 seed.
That's a big problem. I'll
seed.
tell you this. I thought the announcers last night did a really poor job of capturing the big picture of last night's game, the implications. They talked repeatedly, and rightfully so, about the Eagles and Dallas. I mean, it was the Eagles and Dallas, it's the Eagles and Dallas, it's the Eagles and Dallas. There was like no mention, there was little mention of the San Fran factor. Little mention of it. That, to me, was what was so monumental about last night, that it really now comes so squarely into focus that in order to get back to the Super Bowl, the Eagles might have to go through San Francisco in San Fran. I mean, if San Fran beats Baltimore on Christmas Day, the Eagles have a big problem. And by the way,
it's possible that San Fran with Baltimore and the Rams on their schedule, they could slip. That's what we have to hope for.
They could, but I'll tell you this. What is also coming into focus is these next 4 games where it's like, all right, probably beat Seattle and then gimme to end the season. Nothing's a gimme now. Nothing's a gimme. The way this football team's playing, nothing is a gimme. I mean, they do not look.
We burned through the cushion entirely.
Totally.
It is now you must win every game. Hold on, though. The most damning thing about last night, and this is directly in line with our offensive scheme, our coaching staff, that we need to take a look at this. What about the fact that we learned Mike McCarthy has taught Dak how to be reborn in this West Coast offense? And Chris Collins was talking about it, telling us how Dak's over the moon, just bubbling over ecstatic about how he cracked the code of offensive football with Mike McCarthy's help. You know, going 1 to 2 to take off and keep your eyes downfield while you're doing that. And he's saying, he's jubilant. He's saying, I can do this thing now, and it works every time.
And it shows.
Why haven't I been doing this my whole career? Brian Johnson was his coach in college. He's saying, I now have a coach that's taught me offense to where I can understand it, and it works every time. Brian Johnson already coached him. Brian Johnson didn't get this out of him. Mike McCarthy did. And Mike McCarthy yesterday looked like the significantly more established,
better,
chopsy, timely play caller, didn't he?
Yes, he did. It's bad, guys.
We got to take a look at this, man.
Look, it's really rare to have a 10-3 record and feel this way about our football team, but I know how I feel. I hear how John feels. Look, we want to hear how you feel. 215-592-9494. How you feel and what stood out to you, and how much of a big picture problem you think the Birds have. Your phone calls all throughout the show. We got a lot planned. We'll get to it all. Your calls, 215-592-9494.